seventh anniversary of the event that I was personally involved with, and more directly, Peter was directly involved with the shootings here on, as we quietly call them, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And we've had some sessions on that at Maine Eagles. It still brings up a lot of emotion with Peter, so I'm glad it's not on yet. And just wanted to say that it's just one of those things that's a unpleasant reminder that we still have those issues going on and whatever we could do to make it better. And also to protect people. What I really liked was the fact that people such as, I don't know, well, what a good example would be Corey Slovis has said, because of what we've talked about here, help them better prepare for it. And I think then I hope that's the case. And then also we have an immediate resource of folks that you can talk to that have been there, done that, and unfortunately got the t-shirt. So with that, there was a special connection with Peter before he gets on, in the sense that his wife, Allison, was the first person who graduated from the first class, was the class president. In fact, we had dinner the night before. We were talking about that. And the other interesting thing is about the community is it was a very, very tight-knit community. And it just, we've seen the tragedies of the usual things, such as divorces that have occurred since then, and the feeling of frustration of nothing ever being done again. And so it just was, I just wanted to make sure we sat that out there for the day. And even if it's a gloomy start, it's maybe for some of you, I hope that you have a great rest of this day and have a good Valentine's evening and all that kind of thing. I've already called 3 restaurants and they were totally booked, etc. Right? So that's one thing. And fortunately, I've already had my dinner with my wife ahead of time. We were planning for this, and we'll get together on Sunday again. All right, well, listen, now let's go ahead. It's 11:36, so sounds like it's a pretty good time to start. So with that, let's start off with David Miramontes, if you don't mind, David. And the topic I wanted to bring up is that David and his group, as CJ served as a senior author on it, published a study in pre-hospital emergency care. I'm going to probably put something in the chat, where they can find that the publication, David. But essentially, what we want to do is that let's set it up. It was always said for years. I remember I wanted to get blood in the field in the 80s when we were doing that study way back when. But we said, well, we'd have transfusion reaction. I said, yeah, but we could save lives. And I've had done that before in other settings for not trauma, but for other conditions. But anyways, it turned out that we were starting to see that if you got the so-called titers, the O positive is about, I think, something like, what, 40%, David, and about 75% of them are quote unquote low titer. But what defines low titer, and how do we pick that? And I'm going to have maybe you explain that a little bit. There's this 1 to 256 has been the limit typically chosen in the United States. There are other places that choose different levels, but you wanted to very nicely and very conscientiously decided to study that to see, did you get reactions when we use this approach to things? So I hope that was not too much of a setup or just about right. And I want to know, did we harm people? Were there people that had transfusion reactions? Is it the right level? Should we go lower? Should we go higher, etc.? And so with that, David, maybe you can answer some questions with the data that you came up with. And I'll put the article, or at least a link to it in the chat in just a minute or two. Okay. And with that, before I say, or again, the CME level for us today is 213. For those of you in LA, it's the old area code 21350. 21350. And Jim, if you're on, if you could put it in there, I'd appreciate it. And then for the Seagulls, it was 21351. 21351. All right, and then so now one of our favorite people, David Miramontes, medical director from the great city of San Antonio, and where they've been doing this great work for over 7 years. So go ahead, David, hit it. Tell us about the study.
All right. So give me a thumbs up. You can hear me on my travel.
Yep, you got it. We got
Okay,
you.
good.
Too.
All right. So I am not CJ Winkler. He is the vampire in charge in my shop, and he's probably the world's expert in this. But he is battling the Texas Medical Board right now, and so he asked me to pinch it. So we're going to talk about this article. If you scroll all the way to the top of the chat, I have the link, the article, and how they actually do the titers in the chat. So scroll all the way to the top of the chat before everyone started talking. It's all there. And you can get this article yourselves. So here's what we did. We looked at, this study was done by our fellows and our folks at University Hospital in the trauma section. So we looked at a total of 1,126 transfusions. And then what we did is we looked at only the trauma patients. The reason why is because all the other ones were medical cases or they didn't come to the two trauma centers where we could follow the patients. So that's why their inclusion criteria is this way. And then what we looked at is who had transfusion reactions. So out of 572 patients that received whole blood in the field and then went to one of our two trauma centers, we had two transfusion reactions, quote unquote. One was a non-hemolytic febrile that happened on day one, and that could be from any of the other blood products that they got in the hospital in the ER. Remember, we're only the first person giving this vital tissue or organ to the patient. And once they get to the hospital, these wicked sick patients might get 6, 8, 10, 12 units of different factors. So we had one febrile non-hemolytic reaction. And then there was one allergic reaction. So that ratio, I think, is 0.3% transfusion reactions. And that's way, way, way below the national standard of 0.1%. So what we showed in this study with our trauma patients, very, very low incidence of transfusion reactions. Now, the allergic reaction. Okay, I'm a recovering nurse, RN. I can tell you that we get allergic reactions all the time. We stop the infusion, give them some Benadryl. They're not getting worse. We can continue the transfusion. But so that was the only one that potentially could have met the 4 AAPB criteria for quote serious reaction because they had shortness of breath and lives. So with that being said, safe and effective. And Paul, you had a question about the dilution, right?
And there, it's if you don't mind, before I go to that. So what I wanted to emphasize here, and David and maybe Don Jenkins is on board. It looks like the risk is actually lower than you typically see in hospital settings, for example, right? Is that what you're kind of alluding to before?
Correct. So we had a 0.35% in the study, and the national standard is less than 1%.
Yeah. And before I go over there, Don, how's been your experience in hospital compared to this? If you're on with us, he's over still on the other. Gotta get you promoted over, Don, to the panelist side so you can talk, or we'll come back to you later if you want. But okay, rejoining as a panelist now. Okay, good. John, how's that is in your own personal experience as opposed to national level since it's the same locale? Does it look like this is a lot lower than what you're seeing in hospital as well?
It's a little less, but it's on par. The concern was that it would be higher because we're giving it to, as the emergency release product. It's got all the white cells in it, right? This is not a leukoreduced product, so there was concern that we would see higher rates. We've got, I'm going to say, in the 13,000 units that we've given at University Hospital, the rate of transfusion reaction that is most often allergic in nature, that we have had no proven. We had one hemolytic transfusion reaction in a case, as David was just saying, that with multiple blood products of all kinds, and the rate of all the other transfusion reactions is a little lower than all the other blood products.
Yeah.
Not sure why that is. We were just, when we studied it in the hospital, we were just out to show that, is it safe? Is it not safe? We weren't expecting to see lower numbers for sure, but that's the case. It was lower numbers of those reactions. So.
And then if you go back, can you show just at the title, David, if you don't mind scrolling back up again, if you can do that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that Don is one of the authors on this. And obviously was involved along with the usual suspects like David Wampler and Bill Bullock and and Chris, etc. and so on. And I mean, I'm sorry, CJ. So with that, well, good. And then we'll have you comment later on some of the other things we've heard today. Then later, what I want to do is I might get, I'm thinking is that I may have some other speakers because of some other work that you guys have done, and maybe you could even give us a teaser, so to speak, Don, on this. But the issue about looking at the new policies or new position statements you guys have worked on regarding blood transfusions for women, and I think that would be a cool thing to do and just go over that. I was talking to Dr. Spinella about that yesterday. I'm looking forward to seeing that information. And for sure, we'll present it at the Eagles National Meeting in June. Okay, so David, let's get back to it. So I heard that the titers were under 1,000. I didn't know what all that meant, early on with the military years ago. And then they said, well, it looks like it's safe if it's 1 to 256. And I'm going, what's that mean? How do you come up with the cuts of a 1 to 256 or 1 to 125 or whatever it might be? Tell us about that.
Okay, so it has to do with how easy is it to put the 1 mil of the 50 microliters of the patient's, of the donor's plasma, and then they mix it with these 50 microliters of the A and B cells, and then they put it in basically 251 mLs of saline, and they shake it up, and they look for agglutination both visually and also under the microscope. So the reason why they use this titer is chemistry, basic chemistry of how you dilute it. And also they found that this was the dilution that created less than 1% transfusion reaction. Now, if you go lower, yes, you'd probably have lower that transfusion reaction rate, but not by much. So this was military's protocol. I have it on the screen because CJ and I both go, well, how do they do that, right? And so this is why. And it's really a rather crude test, but it works.
If I might just throw in, David, this is for all the standardization that there is in blood banking across the board from FDA and AABB. This is a non-standardized test. Every blood bank does it in quotes differently, and there is no set standard way of doing this.
The other thing I was going to say is, why is it an odd number? Like, for example, Europeans will say they say under 250, but this has to do with 16 times 16 is 256. Has something to do with the number of the squares, right?
It's 2 to 8, I believe. It's an exponential thing. That's why it's 256.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So for example, that's exactly what it is. So that's great. And that's where you get that funny number. So. All right, but at least, I mean, bottom line though is that it looks like we're on the right track here, what we've been doing. So very, very, very good. Thank you for that report. That makes us feel good about this. And so let's now move on and have some questions about about we're all zealots here about getting blood in the streets. I'm excited about it after 3 decades. And the experience of the military has been fantastic. But there are some issues in terms of reconsidering, how we're going to do it and what are some of the limitations of what we're doing. And Frank Guyette and his team wrote a kind of a nice article in JCEP. It's an open access with the American College of Emergency Physicians. And Frank, first of all, is a fantastic person. We don't know him from up in the UPMC in Pittsburgh, and known him for years. Delightful human being and brilliant. And so we're just really glad to have you on with our group here, by the way. So these are the majority of the people on have been the medical directors for most of the largest cities in the United States, Frank. And so they cover about 1/3 of the U.S. population. So as Jim Augustine has figured out for us. And so they're going to be very interested in hearing, some of the issues the precautions or the caveats that you have to talk to us about. If you don't mind, I know you have to hard stop in about 12 minutes, so you can just give us a 5-minute overview, and then maybe we could do some Q&A with you, if that's okay. All right. So with that, Dr. Frank Guyette from UPMC. So, and I'll shove the copy of your article into the chat in just a second. Okay.
Paul, appreciate that. So one of the things that we did is we just tried to describe what would be useful to a medical director in terms of implementing a blood program, and what are some of the considerations that they would want to have? And obviously, you all are the early adopters. You're at the forefront, and many of you have already adapted to have whole blood or blood delivery systems within your EMS services. But the challenge for suburban, rural, or less well-resourced place is, how do you balance the need to bring blood to the field with some of the logistical concerns? So the storage, the regulatory issues, the maintaining the cold chain, and without affiliations with a blood bank like the STRAC system, or with an individual hospital that can act as the blood bank, that becomes somewhat challenging. The other concern is that as we all try to race to implement this life-saving therapy, I think we have to think about the larger issues with respect to the blood supply itself. And some of that is, inflicted upon us by the way the blood banking system works, and the limited ability to have whole blood, due to the fact that it is beneficial to the blood banking system to fractionate product. But the other piece of this is, if we all start trying to implement our own local blood programs, there won't be enough blood to go around, at least not without other interventions. And I think it's really an all of the above type situation, where we need to encourage blood donation. We need to build systems like the Brothers in Arms projects down in Texas, in addition to making sure that we're utilizing the resource well. And by doing that, I think some of the key things that we need to think of are the total cost, not just the cost of the product, but also the cost of storage, the cost of training, the cost of maintaining proficiency, the cost of supplies, be it if you're using blood warmers, if you're using infusion devices, that kind of thing, as adjuncts to the blood administration. And in addition to that, I think we also have to think about how do we protect the blood supply so that it's available for everyone. And again, individual medical directors are going to have different answers to these questions. It could be that you use a regionalized program, that you're doing it county-based instead of perhaps municipal-based. It could be that you have a tiered program where blood is only available on certain units to cover your service area. And then the third option is that, or the third issue is that there's an opportunity to recycle those products. So if those products are near outdate, is there a way to either get them into the hospital to get them used emergently, or in the case of whole blood, could it be downcycled to pack red blood cells, which even that is not ideal, but it's better than nothing, and still preserves some of the availability of the product. And I think the elephant in the room is that while we're all zealots and we have great, we have great observational data, we don't have RCTs yet, at least in the field for whole blood. We do for plasma, and that kind of brings us to the other part of this question. We have freeze-dried plasma on the near horizon, and that product is probably a lot better in terms of democratizing it to systems, particularly rural systems, where it's unlikely that it'll be used in the lifespan of a fractionated unit or a whole blood unit. So I think the things that we tried to bring to the forefront for the medical director are to consider what are those limitations from the standpoint of operationalization and cost, and how do we overcome them? And also, what are the limitations in terms of democratizing blood use and making product available for everybody? And again, we only hint at it because we don't have quite all the data using plasma, perhaps freeze-dried, in the near future. We briefly went through the literature just to describe some of the issues with why we've seen differential results, why we've seen large reductions in mortality associated with plasma, say in the PAMPER trial, and no reduction in mortality with combat. And we talked a little bit about that as well. There's probably some time dependency. There's probably some injury characteristics that contribute to people who respond or don't respond to blood. And those things too have to be considered in your system. If your system is delivering people to the trauma center very quickly, then there may be less benefit than patients who are going to be 20 minutes plus from the trauma center based on some of the observational data, which was secondary analyses from randomized controlled trials. So with that, I think I hope that's a reasonable summation of what we talked about, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Don Jenkins, great to have him on. Asked me last year, and John Holcomb, to talk about the issues you're saying, some of the respect to the disparities. You know, how do you keep blood going out there in a rural area where there's one tractor accident a year or whatever that might be? But at the same token, there's disparities within our systems, because oftentimes we have to have a supervisor vehicle try to get it over to another vehicle. So there's those issues as well. And yet David Miramontes would argue that by the time they finally get the band on your arm and etc., you can finally get the blood into the hospital. You know, it may be worthwhile stopping outside the hospital door, giving the blood before you go in. So, so that there's, yeah. So the point is, though, there's so many moving parts here that we're just trying to make sure everybody's aware of all of those things. So let's first get David. You want to react to it yourself, or to the comments that you heard here today? I'll start with you.
So I was going to start out with, not everybody in our system gets whole blood because they may be out of position. These blood may, so I think it's like 60% of eligible patients get blood. So even in our system, not everyone gets blood because of logistics, right? The MOP was at trainings, he was on the other side of town. So when the call happened in this district, he wasn't around, right? So yes, it's all about logistics, trying to do the best for the most amount of patients you can and work the magic as much as you can with your system. I think Frank's totally right about a system of care so that we don't waste blood. It doesn't make any sense to buy a bag of blood, put it in a helicopter, and not use it for 5 days and then throw it away. That's just ridiculous, right? So I think he's dead right.
Yeah, and do the quality assurance that you guys have been doing right out there, and looking at re-examining and fine-tuning this, because ultimately the other thing is what I think Frank's paper was about. This is a precious resource, and we just can't just, you use it. We got to do it. That we've talked about this, like defining, circulatory arrest versus traumatic arrest, where the heart really is dead, that kind of thing, and can't start. Or maybe we need to liberalize it more, some of the criteria that we're using now, which I think something Don Jenkins talking about working on in the future here. Let's go over to Eric Bank, who started the first pre-hospital bloods program, and then we'll go to Holly over in DC. Okay. So Eric, what do you have to say about this? You start now, you're at 9 years now, right? Is that right?
We're at 9 years. And so I think that with the systems of care approach, I definitely agree. We're all trying to be good stewards of the blood supply. I think, Frank, the other portion of this too is that we push blood drives when we push this out. There are some blood banks that have a mandatory, hey, if you want blood, you have to bring in this, which I think is wrong. But we do push blood drives. We also do push blood products because whole blood's not always available. So we tell people need to be flexible. I know, unfortunately, that, the proper study is great. The combat study is where we go to for EMS, and it's just really it's a poor comparison just because of the way that the system was run and the fresh frozen plasma that had to be thawed. And I really would love someone to redo combat with some type of dried plasma product when it comes out. I think that would be an awesome study for somebody to redo. But I do think there's some disparities of where it is. There obviously are some huge blood deserts. There's some huge I don't want to use blood coagulation, but if you look at the major blood centers, there's a lot of agencies around the blood centers. I definitely think we want to be careful as we push this out, but the interesting part is that where we're looking at some of the cities with short transport times, and I don't think Dr. Goodlow's on today, when they went back and looked at their transport times weren't really what they thought they were. And it's kind of what Dr. Miramontes was talking about, where you get to the hospital and you're still waiting and waiting. And I'm pretty sure, and I didn't see anybody on from New Orleans today, but they were at 8 minutes for their study. for blood delivery with maybe an extra 4 to 5 minutes in transport time versus 27 minutes in the hospital. Atlanta's shown some great success on it, and I know, Holly's Lieutenant O'Byrne's on from DC Fire, and they've shown tremendous success with short transport time. So I kind of want to let Holly kind of comment too.
Let me interrupt for a second because Frank, you have to go. You have a hard stop at noon. Is that right?
I can be a few minutes late.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and get the comment from Holly. And by the way, this is not a point counterpart thing as much as actually evolving off of the conversation for you of what you've started there. So, which is thank you so much for doing this. Holly, what do you have to say? So, Lieutenant O'Byrne from Washington D.C. Fires had a lot of experience now, unfortunately, due to the knife and gun club, so to speak. There, and Holly, what's your reaction?
So, good morning. Just as a little bit of a counterpoint, we delivered 7 units to patients within right at 52 hours with 100% QC rating. So we work diligently to assess our PMAX or potential misadministration cases. We have very few of those because of the training we rolled out. I'm going to go out on a limb here. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm a little disappointed in this article because I think from a pre-hospital standpoint, and hold on, Dr. Guyette, hold on. There is the ability for this article to be taken to say, we're not doing this. Okay. There is the ability to go to city councils. There is the ability for this to be used by blood bankers to say pre-hospital doesn't need blood. For many of us, we work diligently across the nation. We talk to agencies who are looking at giving blood. And one of the first things that we discuss is, what do you know? Do you know you need blood? What is your trauma rating? How close are you to the hospital? I know that my transport times right now, my median transport times for 220 cases is 13 minutes and 48 seconds. I know what it is throughout the city. And we ask questions like that. We ask questions about inclusion criteria. And I agree that we need to do a larger comparison study. What are we looking at? Blood donation is a big part of us. We're getting ready to start Battle of the Badge in April to make sure we fill the tank. That's the message of what we're doing. But there is the ability for this to be used against agencies who strongly do need to use blood for their patient population and their demographics. So there are points of this, especially when we say that if there's a helicopter with blood available, that's what we should be using. I came from the HEMS world before I came to DC Fire, and whenever I see that in an article, it's a little sad.
Yeah, Holly, I take issue with that, and I'll push back on you because you
Okay.
don't have helicopters in DC that are going to deliver blood, right? And if you're in rural Pennsylvania, for instance, and you have your service does 300 calls a year, it doesn't make sense for you to have blood. At least not the way we have. At least not the way we have it. Right. And that was the point. And I can understand your angst, and I could see somebody trying to interpret that particular statement that way, but that was not how it was intended. And I think that and obviously there's always opportunity to do things differently or better, but we made this argument in as balanced a fashion as we could.
I hope that maybe offline we can discuss this further, because I would like to highlight a lot of our data, because maybe that we can promote a different stance, hopefully in the future.
Sure. The fact that you have that data is actually what makes it successful in your region, right? If you're not looking at the data, if you're not looking at those considerations, then I think that's where we run the risk of misusing the resource.
Paul, you're on mute.
Yep.
And I think that the good news is that Holly, I know you are concerned that someone might show you one paper, but there's so much other support out here now with the other experiences, such as we saw today, is a good example that will help us. I know it's not perfect, but I mean, it's almost good that we're doing these challenges right now to make it even stronger, to get it out to the places that need it. Peter, you're going to make a comment?
Yes, Paul, thanks. And Frank, thanks for the presentation. And maybe I'll kind of maybe add a little bit of color to where Holly's comment may be coming from, which is that there was another paper written by the group out of Boston that was a total hit job. It was inappropriate. It used data that was from the refill trial that was nothing like what's going on here in the United States. And it said at the very bottom that, you know, EMS systems should really stop considering using whole blood. And I think that paper put everybody, I think it got a lot of people angry. Your paper, I think what you're trying to say now that I hear you saying it, and it's very true. A lot of us believe that, you know, the first 200 agencies who started whole blood, you know, we're the high performers. I mean, there are very few Hollies in this country, right? The concern is that the next 1,000 are just going to be kind of looky-loos who are going to do it all the wrong way, right? They haven't thought through all the setup and all the logistics and the blood distribution, the amount of blood that's available in the system. So I think that we're probably not at the Schoenfeld article that came out earlier, but this is more of a let's evaluate. And I've always felt, I'll just my last comment, I've always felt that perhaps the states or someone should evaluate whether a system should be using blood. So in Broward County, we have 18 fire departments. All 18 fire departments don't need blood, but I will agree that there needs to be blood in Broward County. There needs to be blood in Palm Beach County, even though we have helicopters circling the area as well. So just wanted to make that comment that, you know, and Frank and I have known each other for a long time, way back to the Pittsburgh days. So I do hope that people take this as evaluate what your needs are, evaluate whether you even need it. And if you don't need it personally, maybe regionally, you could have that vision to bring people in regionally to get blood in your system without duplicating efforts over and over and over again. That's just my comment.
So in a way, what you just alerted me to, Peter, is that there is now a sensitivity because of the Boston paper, et cetera, right?
Big time.
That's okay. So that helps a little bit here, our understanding. So and then Gordon, Kate Gordon Miller, I saw you made a long comment. So I guess can you just explain it to us, right? Or tell us what you said. And then Randy and Don, I'm going to bring you on pretty soon. So go ahead.
About our rural agency having blood.
Yeah. Whatever
So,
you chat, just get nail it out to the group real quick in a 30-second whatever. So.
Yep. So we're a rural agency, cover about 850 square miles. We're in northwest Louisiana. Our helicopter here does a lot of patient transfers as far as hospitals, so we can't rely on them much. We may transfuse 5 to 10 units a year. We're very close to the blood bank as far as probably about 30 minutes or so we can exchange it about 2 weeks out. We waste no product. We have a very good relationship with them. And those 5 to 10 units a year make a lot of difference because those patients have no support at all. They could die in a vehicle if that helicopter is not available. And we've had great success with it, probably the first year in at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Randy, go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, I think that's exactly the point. Like the things that you just mentioned, right? That you're carrying blood just on a supervisor vehicle. You have a plan for cold chain storage for exchange of the unit. You're not wasting it, right? Those are exactly the considerations. You know, our point was not that, you know, a rural agency or a suburban agency shouldn't carry blood. Our point was that if you're going to do it, you have to consider those things. And I think, you know, what we need is that as Peter started talking about, as a second tranche of people of agencies start to adapt, they need Hollies and Erics and Gordons to tell them how to do it properly.
Yep, exactly right, and that's how I interpret things here. I was unaware of the issue of the other paper, Peter. So that thank you for bringing it up. Hey, Randy Schaefer, you said you agreed with Peter's point. What specifically can you reiterate what you're thinking, and also make any other comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing of the two papers was, Frank, you probably didn't even know that other one was out there, but it was a pretty bad hit job. So I think there was some sensitivity. So thank you, Peter, for bringing that up. And then 100% agree. I am starting to see and this is not pointing the finger at anybody, that as more distributors are coming online selling their products,
Ah,
agencies are going to the catalog and picking out items. And then, I've gotten a couple texts and emails. Oh my gosh, we bought $50,000 worth of equipment. Nobody told us how hard this was. So now I'm going back and talking with them. So yes, we are absolutely coming at more to that middle of the bell curve. And I know myself, the Pre-Hospital Blood Transfusion Initiative Coalition, we do have a lot of concerns that there'll be maybe some folks that don't get prepped correctly. And then it's definitely a lot of struggle when they do try to go talk to the blood bank or the hospital if they haven't prepped. So yes, I agree. And there are a lot of resources out there. So please, if you're thinking about starting the program, get any one of the subject matters experts on board early before you buy the equipment. And because this one agency actually bought the equipment, done the training, and wrote the protocols. And before they realized that, wait, this is not like any other. So Frank, 100% agree that we do need to have a systematic approach. I know when I do my presentations and talk that this isn't the military experience is not a one-for-one translation, just due to the sheer volume of EMS agencies out there, that we will have a supply demand problem. So,
And the military
Frank.
comes with logistics experts and supply chain experts.
yeah,
built
yeah,
in,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
well,
So-
I use that term very loosely, experts on the military side, but sometimes my crap does occasionally show up when it's supposed to.
All right, well, Frank, you have to go, I know, but so I'm going to go ahead and jump to John Kramer, but you can leave whenever you can. But Frank, thanks for being on. Appreciate it. Okay, so all right, John.
Yeah, just a quick comment, and this has been sort of alluded to, but anybody that's thinking about starting a program needs to understand one of the first points of due diligence is define your geographic area and then do your assessment to determine pre-hospital, how many hemorrhagic shock, hypovolemic, however you want to define it, trauma and medical patients may have benefited, and how many folks in the emergency department received stat blood once they arrived. So, you got to do your due diligence before contacting the blood bank and before purchasing equipment and all of the things that Randy talked about.
Emphasis on the stat blood, right? Versus what we.
Yeah, that's 20 minutes before it gets to the emergency department.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. Hey, Don Jenkins, if you don't mind, I just wanted to have you bring up something for me, because one person I want to introduce you for is Bethany Brown, who's on with us today, and she's from the Red Cross. Bethany, can you introduce yourself real quickly and what your job is there?
Sure, I can. So Bethany Brown, American Red Cross, and I sit on the research side of the house, so not as much on the field side and distribution, but really working in transfusion innovation. So well acquainted with what's going on in the development of the dried plasma space. Have tried to help support even some of the manufacturing constraints for the blood center when it comes to production of the low titer whole blood. There are some constraints in our system that have really risked us capping supply that we've been trying to work through. And
Oh, did we lose her, or is it I guess here she is. Okay. We lost her for a second. So
okay.
it was a TIA, a transit.
Sorry
Right.
about that. Yep. So really just in that kind of transfusion product innovation space, helping with supply constraints and things like that. So
the reason why I want you to meet some of the folks on the call here today, including Dr. Jenkins, who has been doing some work with the Red Cross recently. And Dr. Jenkins, I just want to do the intro to Bethany so you guys get to know each other. But tell us a little bit what you've been doing with the Red Cross on the national level and why. Okay.
Yeah. So John Holcomb and I have been talking with Pampi Young and a fellow by the name of David Willis. I don't know if you know David, but he's a bit of a statistics guru, and looking at what the potential need would be from the Red Cross perspective if we brought if we made this a national endeavor, right? That how many EMS agencies are out there? How much blood would they carry? There's difference in urban and rural. There's a lot of factors that go into that, to include embedded rotational scheme, et cetera, trying to put a dollar figure to that, right? So if we're gonna get, if FibTech is going to get the federal government to appropriately pay for this, they're going to need to know what the bill is going to be.
Yeah.
The number of units of whole blood required if we're whole blood only. We also did a split with plasma. Right, that if plasma perhaps in those short transport time runs was more available than whole blood, instead of giving crystalloid as the primary resuscitation fluid when you don't have whole blood available. Plasma would be a fantastic interim step to bridge that gap to whole blood availability. And as you might imagine, you're talking about $1.5 billion probably a year to outfit that system. And it accounts for all the loss during collection and transport and potential waste on the other end, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty good. We're gonna write an editorial to sort of lay that out there to get the feds ready for the bill.
Right. So let me interrupt you, because one of the asks you had, for example, with me, is how many ALS units are there out there, who could
Yep.
build this? And
That's
so
the
let's
number that
say,
factors in here. Yep.
yeah, let's say if I go to the state of Texas, maybe I could go to the Department of Health's EMS Bureau and say, you have ALS units have to be registered with you. How many do you have? That may be a beginning step, I think. But then we have all these other states that may do it in different ways. You've done some work, Eric and John and Randy, you guys have done, let me go to John first, of trying to obtain information across the states using NSEMSO, for example, right? But do you have any answers for immediate answers for or a strategy for Don Jenkins going forward to get that answer?
Well, the number of ALS units and other EMS demographics is extremely challenging. NSEMSO doesn't have it. The NHTSA Office of EMS doesn't have it. I've contacted several other folks as potential resources who don't have it. I've got a call at 1 o'clock this afternoon trying to figure out how we may be able to approach that from a national, more global perspective.
Yeah. Okay, good. Randy, any other suggestions to that, or the thoughts on it? Because since you've been doing your kind of tallies and so on.
Yeah, no, I'm working on the process with these different organizations, and the answer is we don't know. You make some guesses, but
All right,
we don't know.
All right, so
Sadly, and
John, there's
just-
kind of an immediate answer for you. It's what the same one that I had for you yesterday, right? Or whatever it was. But maybe John, since he's going to start that call here in a little while, can be a point person for you and maybe help us with that approach. Is that okay with you, John?
Oh, we've had a lot of those conversations already. Yep.
All right, got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so for the record, I've asked 4 people, and all 4 people said, "Wait, let me check with John."
So Randy has like the back computer and that's where the map comes from, right? So it's all legwork. No one actually has the real numbers. That's
Hey,
what
by the way, can you give us how many agencies do you have? We hit the 200 mark about a month ago, right? Where are we now?
let's see, we're about 220.
Okay, 220. Okay, and climbing. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. Was just kind of curious. All right. Well, anyways, Bethy's info is there in the there, John, in the chat. So if you want to check that out and then include her into your loop, so to speak. and that'll be fantastic. And so I want to make sure I made that introduction and also get out your ask to people. And if anybody else has any creative thoughts about how to approach this, we'll have to do it. So the next speaker was supposed to be talking about EPOC. We may have to put it off to next week because I think Peter has to get off for some reason. And Peter, are you off now already?
No, no, I'm here. No, I'm here. I mean, I can,
Want to defer this to next week then?
if you have other things going, then yeah, if that would be good, that's
No,
okay.
we can't. There's no problem. I mean, we just want to learn about this, and we can always defer to next week. Okay, that kind of thing. So let me, yeah, why don't we just do that? Because I want to make sure. But we have a good group on today, so I don't know. Can you do
Yeah,
like?
I could,
Yeah,
I
do
could,
3
I
or 4
could, as long
minutes.
as I could take 5 minutes right now and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's do it then. I wanted to make sure we accommodated you, and we have a good cadre on today, over 60 people, so that'd be fantastic. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. So Paul wanted me to talk about something that we're rolling out here in Coral Springs Parkland Fire Department in about a week or two, which is basically the Siemens product, which is effectively an iStat. It's called the EPOC, Emergency Point of Care Test. And effectively it does VBG, some chemistries, H&H, lactate, just to kind of give you an idea of what it does. Very difficult to get in progress because it's a CLIA, it's not a CLIA wave test, meaning that you have to become a CLIA laboratory. And not only that, but you're a mobile laboratory. And all the regulations.
To interrupt you there. There's obviously regulatory stuff, a lot of hoops to jump through, and papers that submit, and applications, blah blah. How much does it cost for the application? Is there ongoing cost to be a CLIA center? How does that work?
Yeah, so I would have to ask Chief Barry what the ongoing costs are, but you do need to have essentially a consultant, a paid consultant that you have to have on your team. Because, for example, in Coral Springs, we have approximately 186 members, personnel. We are training all of them up. Well, it turns out if you want to train all of them up, then they have to have a quality assurance going on all year long.
Right.
So whereas we spoke to some folks in Texas, Justin Northeim is the medical director there. He got on the call with his folks with me. They only have it on their supervisor vehicles. So they only have about 4 people that they have to have QA. And it becomes very difficult because when they come to look at your system, I mean, if you thought blood was hard, this is maybe 10 times more difficult as far as keeping the program going, the regulatory body, CLIA, at the national level, at the state level. As a medical director, you have to take a 30-hour course effectively to become the medical director for this laboratory. What are we going to be using for really is the next question here, right? We have short transport times. The time from the scene to a hospital on average at this system is 18 minutes. And the question becomes, what is going to change in those 18 minutes for the paramedic beyond just being able to give the physician when they arrive a lab value, right? Or arriving on the scene of a patient who's pale and figuring out that the hemoglobin is 4, and hey, maybe we'll call in the whole blood. Or maybe even doing a study like I know Don's doing in Texas, which is figuring out what the calcium level is just from the trauma itself before they receive the unit of whole blood, or maybe even the calcium level after the unit, right?
In my personal opinion, I've always wanted to get a lactate level because studies have been done in the past with point of care lactates that's showing there's a whole bunch of people who have normal vital signs that have a lactate over 4 and they went to surgery. And so that to me is appealing, but there's a huge number of hurdles and hoops to jump through here that are significant. We haven't even talked about costs yet, correct?
Well, so the cost is we ended up getting these on a grant. So the cost of the devices for us were 0. It's then the cost of all the paperwork, all the regulatory stuff, getting the license. I see that Jeff said that Veer, when he was in Fort Worth, figured a little bit of a workaround, but that lab consultant, and Jeff is right. We were told that you must have a lab consultant. And the other option is to go to your local hospital to someone who works in the lab for that person to help you out, because those devices need a lot of QA, and you have to make sure that the devices are working well.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that the temperature of the actual cartridges don't go out of temperature. So that's another logistical thing you have to do. But beyond that part, let's say that part is hard, fine, we'll put it to the side. You can get some help, yes. My question for the group really is that there needs to be research done, and we're going to be part of that, which is the juice worth the squeeze for this type of pre-hospital test? And I will say that Justin Northeim in Texas is doing a study now specifically for cardiac arrest, and he wants to include this in his study with respect to getting some lab values intra-arrest to determine whether or not any modifications to the treatment algorithm could be made right then on the scene. So I'll stop there.
Okay, good. Anybody want to ask any questions or had experience with these before? That's what Peter had asked last week at the end of the meeting. He wanted to sort of give a feel for if anybody had experience with this or knew about it, et cetera. And I think there's a lot of interesting, especially if you're going to do studies, Peter, there are probably a lot of interesting questions to ask and identify, because it's a broad, this thing is not just, you know, a point of care testing like glucose. It's got a lot of things in there, right? Like, so on.
Yeah.
What
There's
it markets for, by the way?
What, say it again?
Do you have any idea what it does market for, like retail, if someone was to go out to buy this for their hospital?
I don't. I know it's 10 grand for an iStat. So it's probably around that same
Yeah,
cost.
okay.
Plus, but the other thing I wanted to say that I did that we're going to be studying, which is the evaluation of the lab results. I'm not going to go teach 190 people how to interpret VBGs overnight or what the calcium means. So I actually integrated AI, and so the result goes right from the medic. It goes right to ChatGPT, and they actually get a text back within about 15 seconds with the full result. And so we are going to be looking at that to maybe get 100 of those results and get blinded doctors to look at it.
You have faith in what the answer is going to be. You know, how does it?
So far, it's been really good, and I haven't found a result that's been wrong so far, but that's part of the study we're gonna look at. And there have been a few kind of AI in healthcare studies out there so far with respect to diagnosis, with respect to radiologists, with respect to even in dispatch, they've looked at AI, comparing them to your typical dispatcher.
What's AI? Is AI aortic insufficiency? So, all right, Peter, but thanks for at least introducing the concept, and thanks for taking it forward. And then actually down the line, if you can you tell us a little bit about the rationale and what you're seeing so far, bringing the plasma for TBI of all things, right? And that'd be a great one. Now, I know you got to go off, and anyways, my thoughts are with you, of course, today. That was an interesting afternoon we had, you know, back 7 years ago. So thanks so much for your
Peter, a question for you. It's AJ.
Okay.
AJ.
Brian Moore used to be a rep for that company, and he'd be a free consultant for you on a lot of the questions. He used to be at the Eagles meetings, and if you're offline, I can give you his phone number. But he told me the advantage of the Siemens unit is that it did not have to be calibrated as often. Is that correct? That's an expense.
No, it has to be calibrated. I don't know the frequency. My EMS chief, John Barry, is dealing with that part of the house, but they do have to be calibrated.
But my understanding was it was easier. So I just want to make the comment.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Paul, to your comment, thank you. Other people have texted and reached out. I don't know about you, but again, it's something that I just try to suppress. And Chris Caldwell warned me about this a long time ago, that the anniversaries are tough, and he's right.
Yeah.
But thanks for all the people who reached out, and we pray for the families who really took it.
Put it this way, it's tougher for others, as you just mentioned, much tougher, beyond it's incomprehensible. And you know, that kind of thing. And then that's why I'm kind of grateful for what we did. And I'm going to tell you, your actions, the actions of your team, everybody there, you know, made a difference and at least optimized a horrible situation. So live with that. Okay. So
thank you. Thanks, Paul.
All right. So, well, let me quickly go around the room. First of all, I want to get the Europeans, if that's okay, because Fiona already had to get off. So maybe I'll jump first to Pierre. How are you doing on time, Pierre? Are you okay? I maybe caught you off guard, Pierre. And Mick, be prepared, because I'm going to go to you next. Because it's so late there, I want to get to you guys first, right? So, Pierre Carly, good, bonsoir. Okay, are you there? All right, if not, Mick, can you come on and tell us anything to report from out of Dublin or the rest of the island?
Nothing of significance related to EMS. Almost all the people have their power back now after that storm, but not everybody. Again, the difficulties being in a rural environment. And we're just getting ready for the next storm, which is coming next week.
So one thing, okay, well, thanks a lot. Then you as a mass gathering person and knowing about craziness and celebrations that people have there, Crawford Meacham, who's always on with us from Philadelphia, can't be here because they're doing the Super Bowl parade today, which it's like, I can't think of the worst thing to have to take care of, as Erica Carney found out last year with all the shootings they had to undergo. And there are still talk about the PTSD stuff that Chris Caldwell and others have talked about. That's going to be with them forever as well. And I think they're rooting for the Chiefs to lose this year, in fact, because it was just so horrible last year. So we'll see what happens. They already lost a kid that tried to climb up a light pole. This is actually interesting. I don't know if you knew about this, Mick, but he tried to climb up a light pole, but he fell during the championship parade. It was the first level of the, yeah. And so what they've done is the police have now greased all the light poles so people can't climb them now. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I thought you'd want to hear about that. Okay. So you could be better prepared next year with greased light poles. Okay. So that's it.
A lot of ours are wooden, so that wouldn't particularly work. And they have lots of nails in them for the political election posters. So
yeah, right. Exactly right.
Climbing up those things.
All right, I'm going to give Pierre Carly one more shot. Pierre, are you on? And do you have any comments to make? And hopefully we are going to talk about mass gatherings, and you'll be a great part of that, Nick, to talk about particularly locating patients. And Pierre will talk about how this is in the June meeting. The issues they found preparing for the Olympics and what they learned afterwards in terms of preparation that can pass on to our folks, especially Mark Cohen, who's going to be dealing with that in just a few short years himself. Okay. All right. So let's just sort of move around the country. Okay. And see what's going on. Lexi, before we get out of go back to, let's say CONUS, okay, on continental US. Lexi, anything you can tell us about that's going on worldwide as you're the representative, sort of the ambassador for ACEP to various countries around the planet?
Yes.
Anything? Yeah, go ahead. Anything you can tell us of interest?
I unfortunately have, hold on. I have two of my residents here with me, but my background is blurred, so come closer.
Oh, yeah. Come on in. What countries are they from?
Italy, Germany.
Okay, fantastic. So is everything going really well in Italy and Germany on the EMS end?
Okay. Yes,
whereabouts in Italy are you from?
From Modena. Modena.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, fantastic. Okay, and how about in Germany? Where are you from?
I'm near the Polish border at the Baltic Sea. It's a little town. I think you don't know.
All right. Yeah, well, tell me. I may know. You never know. Okay.
What's it called?
What?
He might know.
Greifswald.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know where it is. Okay, good. Okay, well, welcome. I hope has this been interesting for you so far?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
We were talking about how they just have the blood on the helicopters, and no one's really doing EMS pre-hospital blood. No, that you know of. Yeah, at least where they're from. But yes, updates are, I'll be going to many conferences in the next few months, so I'll be able to give you more updates after May.
Okay, good. Let's talk over the weekend. That'd be great. I want to catch up.
For sure.
I actually have my sister-in-law I had dinner with her. She said she's heading to Naples, so I want to put her in again with our folks down there, right? So it's kind of good.
Sure.
She's a trauma surgeon from up in Connecticut. All right. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah.
All right. So let's. I'm glad that was nice timing and all that. Hey, Dave. I just want to jump over to Washington, D.C. real quick. David, thank you for being on, and thanks for the presentation a couple weeks ago about the plane crash. Was there anything else you'd add to the conversation we had about blood? I should have brought you in earlier, but I was hoping you'd raise your hand if you wanted to.
One quick point to tie together that conversation with Peter's conversation. I think the win that we're going to soon be appreciating in DC is the same blood bank that we partner with to receive our blood, retype it, and kind of be our QA spot for blood management. we're also using to do the CLIA certification for the EPOC devices that we'll be putting in soon.
Okay.
So, really same partner to help you support both operations may be an option.
Okay, then that sounds great. Thanks. That's exactly what we need to know then. That's fantastic. Okay. Oh, good. And any other new news? Thanks for the presentation, and it really balanced really well with my experience. So that was really good. And I hope you can even present it this year at our meeting for the audience to know your bullets that you came up with from that terrible event. Anything new that you could tell us or that you thought about after the fact?
Just the importance of standing up an incident action plan for the mental health response. Very, very early. We waited for about a week after to stand that up, but once it got up, it was exceptional. The resources from the International Association of Firefighters, they flew in therapists and clinicians from all around the country to support us. We basically commandeered a hotel in downtown DC that we are having our crews rotate through. So if anybody is looking for kind of help or the infrastructure for building out the mental health response, I think we did a pretty good job, albeit a few days maybe later than we should have, and I'm happy to provide that.
But I'm going to tell you, just like I said, that common theme of guilt that's expressed or manifested in different ways will be there for a long time. I was looking for Chris Colwell right now because to this date, he can identify that same thing under those circumstances, and from what your people saw. But anyway, so that's exactly right. I'm glad to hear you say that. So thank you so much. All right. Well, John Jenkins has his hand up, so it may end up being CLIA land, right? We'll see, or whatever, right? Don, go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to bring back a point related to what Frank presented to us, and maybe I'm missing something here, but the notion that random paramedics in the field are deciding to give blood to people, and that needs to be reined in so we don't waste a resource, is based on an erroneous premise from the beginning. A physician decides to transfuse a patient, and a transfusion occurs. That transfusion occurs when and where the patient is based upon that physician's decision. And that could be in the operating room, that could be in an elevator, that could be in a CAT scanner, that could be in the emergency department, that could be in the back of an ambulance. And I think that if there's a collective will to perhaps just write a simple response, a letter to the editor of the journal to suggest that all well and good, but EMS is not a freewheeling entity. This is run by physicians, and physicians decide when transfusions are given. Thank you very much. Just my thought.
No, it's fine, and I think all of us agree with it, because the nice thing is that most of the protocols that we have implemented do put that ability to say, but they look sick, give it to them.
But that's physician driven.
Yeah,
that's a physician, and they signed the order for that blood.
Yeah, right, exactly right. So that's so that's fine, and I agree. So I'll try to figure out who's going to write it. Right, we'll do it from there. So thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins, as usual, for your wisdom, that kind of thing, and I appreciate, and perspective as well. So we'll maybe some of us will regather and talk about doing exactly what you suggest, or if you want to take a crack at a draft, and I'll help you with that. Okay. Okay, so let's see, from Don, let's just start moving around then, and lower your hand if you don't mind in the meantime. Hey, Ben Weston, just one of the things, let's go to Milwaukee, but where Ben is not only the medical director for EMS, but also the health advisor for the county. And one of the things that has been worrisome, Ben, and I know it affects you, people like Tom Ofterheide, is the issues of grants and all that, and with the office of Doge coming in, clearing out some grants that are out there. Are you seeing any immediate effects or anything that's going to be of concern that we should be looking at or protecting, et cetera, as the next few days or weeks and months pass?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, I think the main things that we've seen, obviously the cut in indirects for NIH grants. We've had some outreach on grants to clarify items around clarify and remove from studies items around diversity, equity, and inclusion, both in study procedures, data recording, and then study personnel. And then the most recent thing from an EMS perspective was folks may have seen the NEMSIS 3.5 data dictionary was pulled from their website and is saying it's being reviewed in accordance with President Trump's executive orders. So we're waiting to see. We have, I'm sure many of you do too, a download copy of that. So we still have it available, but it's not available on the website anymore, and we'll see what comes next.
All right. Well, listen, well, I don't know if anybody else has had any experiences. I just wanted to just sort of put out the, you heard it here first again. Is there anything else we're experiencing or we should be concerned about out there or we're worried about? And that'll be good to report to us, just to let us know, especially if our friends here on board who are in the policy areas and position statement areas can help us out as well. All right. So thanks. Anything else to know about in Milwaukee? Anything new happening there?
Sorry, getting back to mute button. Nothing jumping out. No.
Okay, got it. Okay, good. Okay, so let's go around real quick to various cities, I guess. Well, first of all, Kevin, Kevin Mackey, anything out of Sacramento? The reason why I was also bringing you up because I'll be there in a week, right? Or is it this week? I think coming up.
It's this week coming up.
Yeah. Okay. And when do I come? What day is it? Oh, I get there Thursday around noon. That's right. Okay, good. I think, or is it Wednesday? I can't remember. Yeah, it's Wednesday. I'm coming in Wednesday. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. If you could send me your flight info, that'd be
I
very
will.
helpful.
I just look at.
I don't plan on parking at the airport.
I'm going to bed. I just look to see what appointments do I have tomorrow. Oh, Sacramento. Okay, I'll go. Okay, right. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks,
Paul.
Paul.
Anything to report out of your realm, either on the statewide level or locally?
I'm just going to take this moment to just express a debt of gratitude to not only the people on this phone and for the connections that you make, but this past week, I'm going to call out a couple people that CJ Winkler and Eric Bank and Dave Mermanis have been the heroes that have helped me navigate this very, very, very difficult process of getting a blood program off the ground. I'm much further down the road because of these friends and a lot of the people that are on the phone, including Mark Fridley from Delta Ice and just all the people who are very kind and share information. I just want to use this moment to just say thank you.
Good. You mean David and Eric were helpful? Oh my God. No, yeah, and actually he's been going around. Eric has been all over the place. You were in LA County, if I remember, this past week, right, Eric?
Yeah, we were in San Bernardino first, then LA County after that, and then amazingly, it took 2.5 hours to go from Pasadena back to San Bernardino in the afternoon. I should have asked them for a helicopter.
Yeah. Well, listen, Houston isn't any better. But...
No, it's not. Hey, that's why we kept blood. You couldn't get downtown.
That's great. Well, good. Well, anything else then out of Sacramento? Thanks very much for that well-deserved comment there, Kevin. And Kevin, anything else we should know about in terms of Sacramento or what else you're doing down there? Or I'll find out myself pretty soon.
Yeah, nothing really new to report, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, good. And thanks a lot. And then I was looking to see if Doug Kupas was on, but I think he had something going on. I think he's traveling. I don't know if you have anything on the NASP side to report or the registry side to report.
Something on the registry side. Those of you who know about the IDEA task force, as many national organizations are doing because of the earlier comments about the new administration, the IDEA task force website was taken down while they reassess policies, internal policies. So we're trying to stay ahead of it rather than get caught in the middle of it. So you'll see some changes coming.
Yeah. So some of our friends who are on right now may not know what that is. Can you give us a little bit of it, tell us what that stands for and what it does and why that's significant?
Sure. The IDEA Task Force was started several years ago as a project which is collaborative across many national organizations. But really, Heather Davis at UCLA was really spearheaded the project, and it was to develop. It was a think tank for how diversity, equity, and inclusion impacts EMS, and how we could be more thoughtful moving ahead. And it also provided opportunities for education and training in that space.
Okay.
So that's just a brief summary.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I guess while we're in California, we'll move up I-5 and cross the border and go see what Dave Obert has to report to us. Dave, anything out of Vancouver area?
Nothing specific to update the group on from this side of the border. Other than on a personal note, I have a 1-month-old daughter, so I'm a little more sleep deprived than
Yay!
usual. But that's the big news for my world.
Good for you. So you're not sleeping at all. So
Not
this is
sleeping
great.
at all. It's like on call every night. Yeah.
Like insomnia, right? They should call it perinatal insomnia, right? So okay, well, congratulations. And what's her name?
Susanna
Ah, Susanna, with an S or a Z?
with an S.
Ah, fantastic then. Oh, Susanna. Okay. Don't you cry to it. Yeah, right. There you go. All right. That's pretty funny. All right, David, well, good. Well, thanks for being on. And then you're having a lot of warm weather up there in Vancouver, is that right?
We actually had a cold, cold snap, but and I actually fell victim to this myself. We're not, despite growing up in a place with real Canadian winters, I myself got my car stuck in some pretty treacherous conditions. So luckily that's melted and we're past that now.
All right, great. Well, thanks for being on. And I hope you're going to be able to make it with us because you'll just be a great addition to this in Hollywood in the summer. Okay.
Yeah,
So
would like to.
we're gonna get it down there. Let me try one more time for Pierre Carly. Pierre, are you on by any chance? Let's see. He may have got pulled away. It was dinner time, Pierre, anything we need to know about or from your end?
Oh, very interesting discussion today.
Good.
Nothing special. By the way, we are not using a lot of whole blood, so the article you sent is very interesting. We are using cryoprecipitate most of the time, and most of the time also we use a red blood cell pack and mixed it with fresh frozen plasma. We decongelate very quickly. So that's part of the point. And another point is that you have seen that there is again a terrorist attack in Germany with a car.
Before we go there, I did want to bring up the point. One of the things that we are looking at happening is that we've come to the conclusion we cannot have enough of blood supply that we would have in every ambulance. Maybe because you have kind of a tiered system, you could do it on SAMU. But we've come to the conclusion, exactly what you said, is that there are new plasma products that will probably be out there that are probably going to be room temperature okay, and will have long shelf lives, and that's one thing we could probably carry. So I think we'll find that there'll be a hybrid of everything we've been doing now. So I think
And we have also, Paul, a very strict regulation about the use of blood out of the hospital. Consequently, most of the time we have a special agreement with the blood bank, and if we need blood, it will be prepared immediately. But most of the time we will only use it if we are staying a lot of time out of the hospital, for example, in a disaster situation. We have a small.
Let's move back to your comment then about what happened in Germany again, right? So okay.
So just going back to that, the car thrown in the middle of the crowd is something that is clearly a simple way to make a major terrorist attack without any preparation. So we have to look at that very cautiously in terms of protecting the crowd and also having the possibility to stop the driver. It's not simple. I remind you that the main attack we have in France with that was in Nice. And it has taken a lot of time to stop the driver because nobody had enough, let's say, powerful gun or things like that to stop it. And consequently, he had about 15 minutes to kill people and made 100.
Unbelievable. So the other thing, one common thing that we brought up in our chapter that we wrote was with these truck attacks is that, or even with the bombs or whatever it may be, is a lot of times they will wait for when the crowd is diminished. Like for example, at the Ariana Grande concert, as they were letting people up, that's when the bomber came in. And we saw the same thing in Charlottesville here, where they did a nice job of controlling things in a terrible, could have been contentious. And yet when they were letting the crowd up, that's when the truck driver came in. And I would presume that maybe that's part of what happened in New Orleans, is after a lot of the guard was being let down after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, where more people could have been hurt, but it was a harder thing to go out. And then that's when the 3 o'clock. So I don't know if that's a true, but it's an interesting trend observation to make for all of us to keep in mind.
Just a last comment in that it was something that has been clearly developed during the Olympic Games. The fact that there will not be no accumulation of people, that it will be permanently a flow, and consequently, if people are not standing and not waiting in a place, it's more difficult to send a truck or to perform a terrorist attack. So constant flow is safer than waiting.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, that's fantastic. All right, well, thanks for getting. And then again, let's work on getting you down there, because I want to do a whole session on Wednesday the 11th on mass gatherings, and then complicated by these kinds of things. So thank you so much as usual. All right, let's go across the pond again over to our side of things, and let's start off with well, I always like to get Glenn on board, because New York City's always got something going on. So Glenn and Seda, I was hoping to have Cherie on and then have you do an introduction, but I don't think she quite made it. But either way, what's happening in New York?
So far, we're hanging in there with things. Bird flu identified in some ducks in the Bronx Zoo. That really has put everybody in a little bit of a tizzy. So they're monitoring a little bit more. The big thing going on in New York City right now is really political, where the charges of collaboration against our mayor were told by DOJ to be dropped. And because of that, the Southern District interim attorneys, they just quit. And so it's a big thing for us. And now the governor is being asked to remove the mayor because she has the power to do so. Not specifically related to this, but because of some interactions that our mayor is having with the border czar, I guess, for Trump, and talks about letting ICE come into to Rikers Island, which is this prison system. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we don't know what's going to happen, because if there's any changes at the top, we get told to change our things here as well. So we're kind of watching with bated breath, and we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, well, wow, yeah, that's right. I remember hearing about this, and that's interesting. The governor's getting involved. This is going to get very political. It'll be very interesting to see what's happening there. Let me jump off to Arizona real quickly, because Gail, we hadn't had you on because you've been real busy. But anything to report, either one at the state level, since you're the state director, and anything else to report a local in your hometown?
No significant updates for Arizona. Just had some big events here with the nicer weather that we have this time of year. Although we had a cold front and it's 63 right now, which is chilly for us. But no, otherwise going well. No significant updates.
Okay, good, fantastic. Say hi to the chief for me. I appreciate that. Good, and thanks for having me on. Hope you'll be with us in Hollywood. It'll be great to have you there as usual. Okay.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. And then while we're in Arizona, Terry, anything you can tell us out of the Tucson area? I was looking around to see if any of our other friends are on today, but not. But anything you can report to us that you know about what's going on in Tucson?
Nothing to report here either. It's quiet.
Okay, good. Thanks. All right, good. Let's start. I'll just start to read well, let's just hit the list. Andy, I'm just going to go down alphabetically, I guess. Andy Garrett, anything from your end that you could tell us about what's happening from your perspective, especially on the disaster realm or political realm?
Hey, friends and colleagues. Just like everybody else who has a federal attachment, I'm just keeping my head down and trying to relax before I check my emails to see what's coming next.
Have they asked you to resign yet?
No, but they don't pay me. So, as an intermittent, I don't really cost them any money.
Okay.
But, there's a lot of implications for what the national sort of federal level disaster response capability is going to look like. NDMS is still operational, and we're going to be working missions here in the coming weeks, special events like the joint session. But yeah, it's a pretty uncertain time, and that's just nothing everybody doesn't already know. So keep my head down.
And
Hope
Andy,
to
if
be
you
here
can
tomorrow.
make it again to the session we're going to do in Florida, in June, the about mass gatherings, I think the chapter, one of my favorite chapters is the one you wrote with Meg Marino
Awesome.
and Eileen Marty, because to talk about vulnerable populations and addressing the issues of people coming out of the Gaza or Fukushima or whatever, that kind of thing, and then just letting everybody know about what some of the things we have to do because of the ADA regulations that you helped to write actually originally. So I really appreciate your talent and your knowledge about that. So that would be really
Thanks for
good.
keeping me around. Appreciate it.
Yeah, right. We don't boot you out. It's like, well, I like the emeritus group is so good too, as a matter of fact.
Hey, just as quick follow-up, a
yeah.
couple of weeks ago, I presented the pediatric tactical guidelines update to you. Did that at NEMSP, got good reception to that, and we'll be doing so at Wadham in Tokyo in a couple months. So excited for that. I stuck something in the sidebar. If anyone else is going to Wadham, we should all do an Eagles get together there, but we can figure that out separately.
Yeah. Okay, sounds
Thanks,
good.
Paul.
Mick, are you going to Tokyo?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You got your first.
At least I
drink
got someone to have a
right
beer
there.
with. Thank you, Mick.
All right, let's move on down, and then let me see. Bill Bummer. Hey, Bill. Just to let you know, I'm going to be in Sacramento this week. So just as anything you can report out of the Department of Health. Thanks for saying that thing about the erythrocell. We're going to have a report or a presentation on that at the Eagles meeting in June. By the way, it's really interesting. And Phil Spinella is probably to come down and do that. So just so you're aware of that. Thanks for sending me that. Okay, but I think we could do it maybe on one of these calls. We'll see. But I'd like to have it presented down there anyway. So anything else out of California or the Department of Health?
Yeah, just briefly, influenza activity is very high and increasing. RSV is low and decreasing. COVID is low. So that's the influenza story out here. We have up here in Tahoe, 2 feet, a foot to 2 feet of new snow. So we're staying inside right now.
Okay, got it. Thanks a lot. Thanks again thanks for being on. Hey, Mark Cohen, let's just jump down to LA then, since we're in California. And Mark, anything new to report from your realm?
No, just the shift in weather went from fire weather to atmospheric river. So we've had a few inches of rain just in the last couple of days. And of course, with the new landscape that burned, some mud flows, nothing really significant from an actual operational perspective. Things have been pretty quiet.
Yeah, out at the end of Sunset, right there on Pacific Coast Highway, there were mudslides that were just awful. And in fact, was it one of your vehicles, or whose vehicle was it that got fire vehicle? Whose was it? Was it yours?
That was one of ours, and the hit guy's fine.
Okay, good. Tell us a little bit. Just tell us about that. Just an interesting thing, because what kind of apparatus was it?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I think it was just one of our regular SUVs. He was on PCH, and the mud flow sort of swept him, I think, onto the beach. I just got sort of a text alert, nothing more detailed than that. So he went to the hospital to get checked out, but nothing of significance as far as I was told.
Yeah, well, hey, what's that? Is it Gladstone's that's right out there, right around that area?
It was. I believe it's there no longer.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's next, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, and everything else is doing fine, and I'll see you in a month. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Then that's fantastic. Ray Fowler, can you report anything out of Dallas? Okay, we want to see you anyways. Everybody always asks me about you. I go, I don't know. We'll hope we'll be on Friday, and here he is. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Well, it's great being near Paul so that he and Linda and I can sneak off to dinner once in a while. That's been nice.
And bring babies with us sometimes,
yeah,
right?
we found us a good spot with some good food. Where DFR looks like it's getting pretty close to rolling blood out. It's been quite an adventure getting all the details that many of you are well accustomed to, and appreciate all the correspondence and all of the articles. I've got obviously a lot of reading to do. But things are well. The flu is really peaking right now, and But otherwise, things are well. And best regards to my good friend Jeff Jarvis across the river over there. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, and that Ray, I don't know. There was the alert we put out last week or two. I don't know if you know about that, about the acute necrotizing encephalopathy that we see with kids, especially with these. These are some of the highest flu rates that we've seen ever. And generally, it's fascinating to see that. So I'd be interested to see if we saw any in Texas, because we saw a lot in California.
We're almost 100% higher than our patient flow last year at this particular peak right now.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Seeing almost no COVID, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting then. Okay. Well, it's because it's dominated by the flu. Hey, Shay, I heard Jacob's he was out on the road, couldn't make it, or no, he did a string of nights, I think is what it was. So, but anything out to report out of Denver?
Yeah, he's on a string of nights right now. Nothing big going on. We're still working through some internal response time things, and I know we owe you a presentation. Jacob and I have been pretty tied up, so getting that together. So we'll be in touch to present to this group kind of what we learned about the response time stuff. But other than that, just getting through a little bit of cold snap and warming back up.
Okay, got it. I guess I'm going to have to wrap it here real quickly. And I didn't know if Randy or John had anything else that they had to tell us about that we need to know about before I let everybody go.
Nope.
Either Randy or John.
I think John jumped off. No, nothing on our end.
All right, got it. Okay, good. Libby, anything in Hawaii that we should know about?
No, I really appreciate the conversations today. We've been having some talks about blood, but it's really challenging when some of the neighbor island hospitals have little to no blood.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Yep. Oh, again, hopefully there's going to be some good solutions in the future, that protect the glycocalyx, as I said, I think in one of the presentations I gave. So, okay, well, otherwise you're doing well and you're healthy, and you guys are hit by flu. And how's the tourist trade doing?
It's coming back, but very lacking from Asia. And that used to be a huge part of the market was Japan.
Yeah, right.
It's a great time to visit. Our volcano has been erupting on and off for the past month, and our weather's been good.
Down in the Big Island, down the south end?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it. All right, let's go. Anyways, great to see you as usual. Thank you for being on, and really do appreciate it. David, anything from San Antonio that we should know about? Anything new?
No, we're just working hard on. Actually, yes.
That's what I thought.
The double sequential defibrillation process and pad placement. We're trying to operationalize that in our system, and we're going to do it as soon as operationally available. We're not waiting for a shock.
Okay. Well, listen, it's time to let everybody go. If anybody else has something else they are dying to tell us about, let us know. Go ahead and put your hand up. But otherwise, I'll have to welcome back my friends to the show that never ends. And Ray, we'll call you soon. Ray, you saw the pictures of the twins, right? They're great.
Yes. Oh, wonderful.
I'll send you stuff too.
Congratulations.
Great. And then, all right. Well, listen. Anybody else have anything? Let me know. Other than that, we will dismiss the group. And thanks everybody for joining again today. I hope it was a good discussion for you. Okay. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks.